A lot of people really, really dread listening, and it's weird because you don't even have to speak to a native speaker. You can just practice listening to videos or podcasts in the language you're learning, and people just hate that. Like, they can't focus on it. I even catch myself getting frustrated sometimes, and I think it's because of a few key reasons that happens. So in this video, I'm basically going to explain how to make listening in a foreign language easy/fun so that you can make progress, feel fulfilled, and basically kill any frustration that like you're not making progress and that kind of thing. So make sure you stick around to the end for me to fully explain how you can actually make listening easier, and let's go. So the first thing I want you to understand is the problem at hand. We can't go into problem solving before we understand what the actual issue is. So here is you on the left. You're basically attempting listening to get better at listening. So you're listening to podcasts, maybe you're watching vlogs, that kind of thing. And it's hard. You don't understand a lot of it because it's quite difficult. They're using words you don't know, they're speaking fast, that kind of thing. I completely understand because like I'm listening to a Russian podcast at the moment. I'm learning Russian. I'm getting a lot more of it, which I'm really happy with myself, but it's still difficult. Sometimes they say words or they use weird phrases or they use kind of junk words that don't actually have a translation. And it's frustrating. It's kind of annoying. And what happens a lot of the time, not so much with me anymore, but you get frustrated and you feel like giving up because it's like, okay, this is useless. I'm making no progress. I just can't understand what's going on. I need to either listen to something easier or I just want to give up because it sucks. That is basically the problem at the moment. But as I'll unpack in a second, this isn't actually the problem. This is the symptom. Your frustration is the symptom of the root problem, and the root problem is a little bit different. The root problem is that effectively you don't understand how to actually get better at listening. So here is what's actually going on. You're attempting to listen to get better. Here's you. Here is your goal, which is to get better in a foreign language. And so you're investing time into listening. And what's actually happening is something is blocking you from getting better at listening. Imagine you were listening to the podcast or whatever you're listening to right now, and you found this time you listen to it. Sorry, jumbled words a little bit. This time you listen to it, you understood a few more words that you didn't understand last time. You actually found it a little bit easier. It was a little bit more enjoyable too. You would actually feel a little bit like, okay, I'm actually making progress. This is actually all right. And you feel a little bit more motivated. And the reason is because it's easy to work when you're winning. It's difficult to work when you're losing. And right now you actually aren't finding that you're improving that much. It's really frustrating listening to people that you can't understand even after listening to it so many times. And the reason is because you don't understand how to get better, and what that results in is the perceived waste of time, perceived discomfort. It's, this is useless, I'm not making progress, and so you give up. So now that we understand the actual problem is that you don't understand how to get better, once we solve this problem and I teach you how to actually get better at listening, it's so much easier for it to be fun, for it to be fulfilling. You'll make progress and you'll basically be over here where you are actually getting better at listening in the foreign language. The key to improving listening in a foreign language is perception. You don't understand how to get better at listening in a foreign language because you're perceiving listening as something that's uncomfortable. You're trying to avoid it because you can't understand what's going on and that kind of thing. So what I want you to understand is this basic principle. Whenever you're listening in a foreign language and you don't understand a word, you don't understand something that's going on, which happens a lot, right? It happens to me I don't speak Russian or anything. I'm learning it at the moment. That's the language I'm learning. It still happens to me in Italian sometimes when I will randomly watch something in Italian and they'll use a word I don't know, even though I learnt that language and I can speak it fine. You just encounter words you don't know. I saw this is getting off topic. I saw a bag of pasta that had a random word to do with, it turns out it was to do with pesticides, and I just didn't know what that word is because I'd never fucking read it in my entire life. Why would I read a word to do with pesticides? And I just learnt it then. So what I want you to understand is every single time, we went off topic a little bit there, sorry about that. Every single time you read a word in a foreign language that you don't understand, listen to a word in a foreign language you don't understand, that is a free point towards learning. Every time you encounter something you don't understand when you're listening, it's kind of like digging out an uncut gem out of the ground. Imagine you pulled like a rock out of the ground with diamonds in it. What you actually need to do is refine those. You wouldn't pull a rock out of the ground with diamonds in it and be like, oh, why isn't it a polished, nice diamond? No, you need to actually practice to refine it. Every single time you hear something you don't know, that's a free opportunity for you to get better. That's +1 point for you to actually improve your listening. Even if you don't understand what's going on, you listening is actually improving improving your ability to understand what's going on over time. It takes hundreds of hours, it takes thousands of hours probably, because you've never encountered this stuff before and your brain doesn't understand that it's useful yet. But the more you do this, the more you're actually teaching your brain that, okay, this new stuff I've never encountered before is actually useful. I need to convert the new words into my long-term memory. I need to actually understand this. So a few key tips I will give you to get better at listening. One is perception. Understand. I'm doing the pen thing again. I need to fucking get rid of the pen. You need to understand every time you hear something you don't understand. Obviously, don't listen to incredibly difficult stuff, but every time you hear something you don't understand, that's +1 listening point that's actually making you better at the foreign language. The second thing I want you to understand is that you will get better through reps and consistency. You need to consistently listen to things you don't understand, because that is actually the way your brain works, is that it needs to be told that this thing is going to continually appear. If you're not going to continually be exposed to something you don't understand, your brain has no reason to learn it or convert it into your long-term memory. And it's the same with reps. Like, imagine you're in the gym. If you just do 1 set of bicep curls, you're probably not going to get stronger. If you do 3 sets of bicep curls 3 times a week for 10 weeks, you're obviously going to get stronger biceps, because you're teaching your body that this is something that needs to basically change, because you need to be able to get stronger, you need to be able to lift this weight. It's the same with anything, it's the same with listening in a foreign language. So I'd highly recommend you try and do some listening in a foreign language every single day. Even if it's watching one 10-minute vlog with subtitles that you give your full attention to, that's great. Other things you can do as well are listening to podcasts while you're doing chores, traveling, or exercise if you want, because those are basically free hours where you can listen to something. And yeah, just even if you're not paying full attention while you're driving, obviously don't crash the car. That is actually helping you become better at listening. The third thing I will say is progress stacking as well. So a lot of the time you are actually making some progress in a skill, but you just don't realize you're making progress. And what that happens is it gets to you emotionally and it kind of demotivates you and you no longer want to actually learn a language. So what I want you to understand is that when you are, sorry, I got distracted because someone walked past outside and I wanted to make sure nobody was breaking into my house. I want you to understand that you need to actually progress stack, and you need to be aware of the progress you're making so that you can feel motivated. As we said before, it's easy to work when you're winning. It's hard to work when you're losing. So when you're actually listening in a foreign language, make sure every single time after you actually finish the video or the podcast or whatever, you look back and see what you actually made progress on. Did you recognize this one word that you didn't recognize before? Did the word for I pop out to you? You didn't have to think about it, like it was just quicker for you to make that mental connection. Just little things like that. When you can actually take time to think about it, or even better, once a week or a few times a week to actually get a pen and paper and journal about what you've learned, you'll find it's so much easier to actually invest time into these things because you understand the value of them. And the fourth thing I will say, which is super important, is fun. If you're listening to things that are boring as shit in a foreign language, it's very easy to get frustrated and not enjoy the process because you're leaving a lot on the table. You're leaving fun stuff that you could be doing to make progress on the table. So if you are interested in the gym, for example, watch gym-related content. If you're interested in geopolitics like I am, watch stuff to do with, the government and the state of the world and that kind of thing. I've got to be careful with that one because I'm learning Russian at the moment, but thankfully a lot of alternative media is actually pro-West, which goes to show a lot about the state of the government. If most of the alternative media in your country doesn't like the government, it's kind of interesting, but whatever. Just do things like that. Find content that you can listen to that actually relates to things that interest you, even if it's a little bit difficult. If you spend 15 minutes a day watching a video with subtitles and then you take a few words from that you don't know, learn them and rewatch it and then journal on that to show that you are making progress, you'll be an absolute machine and you'll be learning words in no time. But guys, if you do actually want to make progress in the language you're learning, I'd highly, highly recommend you check out the Language Learning Accelerator below. It's for anyone who is wanting to learn a language. I will personally talk with you and help you learn a language. Guarantee it'll skyrocket your progress like you've never seen before. So yeah, definitely check that out. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. I've also got my Discord in the description. Hopefully this video was helpful for you and have a good one.